Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to SSG Speaks, the podcast that takes you inside the walls of Camelot. Meet the knights that made Sword and Shield Gaming what it is. So pour yourself a flask of your favorite mead and join us for an inside look at the fine folks that sit at the round table.
Hello, and welcome to SSG Speaks, episode number 1. SSG Speaks is the first podcast from the gaming community, Sword and Shield Gaming. We wanted a way to know our community members a little better here, so each episode we're going to be interviewing a member of the community. And this first episode is going to be a little different here because we're going to be interviewing myself, SSG Jayman. So taking on the interview roles today are SSG Gambit and SSG Ghost Rider. So, we've done a couple different things with SSG as far as like interviewing and the way we want to present profiles and stuff like that with different members. And so, initially when we kind of started SSG, we wanted public availability of our profiles. So like on the forums and on the website, we had the text version where people could go and we could see who all the knights were. And there was a publicly access page for each person that they would update and, people could reply to and all that kind of stuff. So, we started with that forum, and then we went to a formal SSG Speaks way where we had an interview on paper, right? We had like a blog format where people would be interviewed. So we've had a couple different variations of that, and we've talked over the years, we've tinkered around with talking about doing podcasts and doing video interviews or some kind of video show, and now we finally have done audio, and obviously Remy, you and I have done video before as well, so
cool. So today we are talking to Jay, or SSG Jayman. Is it still SSG Jayman 16? I don't even know anymore.
No 16. Okay. 16 got removed, and I finally added the SSG.
Oh, okay. So it was always Jayman 16. That's how I met you.
Mm-hmm. And that's because he was born in 2016. So
that's right.
Yeah. You've got a youngin' here.
In Gambit, how many names have you had? You've gone through what, like 40 name changes?
I don't even know.
I'm going to need you to settle in.
I don't even know, honestly. I lost count long ago. But hey, I've stuck with Gambit for some time now.
It's been a minute.
It's true. We all had an identity crisis for a little while, but that's
Hey, Johnny Cakes, calm down over there.
I was John Cakes for a while. So keep that in mind.
That's right. So Jay here is the founder of SSG. He is our Lord and Savior, Jayman. He created SSG. It's his brainchild. And I know you've gone over this in a number of places, as you said, but where did it come from? Just because this is a fresh format, let's get the origin story. Just roll that up real quick. And how did we get here?
We got to see Batman's parents die one more time, don't we? Like you just every time you got to see it.
Use the Spider-Man analogy.
Remy loves that part.
I know you love Batman. So, we all three of us here, we started our more modern gaming roots over at TTL at Tide the Leader, and so we got to enjoy gaming there. And met each other there. So, we started playing there. And I think initially kind of the goal for a lot of people was that we would kind of get inducted into TTL, right? We would all become gunslingers and kind of join TTL. I think that obviously that was everybody's goal at some point. And it grew out of that when we kind of did our own thing, right? Like we just kind of came our own group within
for the win.
TTL, right? Allies for the win. So, we were already our own thing. And that just happened organically, which is probably the best way it could have happened, where we were all playing all night. We were playing every night with a rotating cast of people. And so when it came to, is TTL the best fit for us, right? For the Allies for the win? Like, because I don't think we would have all, even if we would have been inducted, it certainly would not have been all at one time.
No.
And as we've seen from personal friends of ours who get into TTL, like for better or worse, like once you're in TTL, it kind of seemed like they kind of disappeared, right, from the public face. Like, they became a gunslinger, and then that you just didn't hear from them much or see from them much. And so, from a little bit of fear of that happening, and we already had this culture going of our Allies for the win. So just decided, hey, let's just do our own thing. And coincidentally, it seemed like the three of us had that idea about the same time, I guess.
Indeed.
The Howling Commandos.
That's right.
Yeah. So to elaborate on that, John, you broke off. Was it the same day? Was it within a couple days?
It was very close. I want to say that I left first by a couple of days because, like, Jay, when you made the SSG stuff, like, the Howling Commandos was already a thing, as much as it was. And I mean, not that it was even a thing. It was
the four of us.
No,
five,
more or less.
5 or 6 of us. Yeah.
Yeah, there was 5 people. It was me and Remy and Joe.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was dating somebody, and she was there, and Joe was too, and she was there. So that was it. It was 2 couples, and Remy was the awkward 5th wheel.
That's right.
As always.
Oh,
you're right. And so yeah, I mean, but basically it was that same kind of mentality of like, hey, most of the friends that we made there were within the Allies. Like, I mean, sure, like, there was some gunslingers that I knew, and I can say that I'm still in touch with absolutely maybe one of them.
I'm going to one's wedding soon.
Well, there you go. Well, yeah, probably the same one that I'm still in touch with.
Probably.
Right. So, yeah. And so, it was that kind of thing is like, what are we doing? Why are we pushing towards this thing when we could have our own thing? And so, we kind of stepped away and did this thing with the Howling Commandos, basically a bang bang play with Jay that did the SSG thing. And obviously, one's still here and one's not, which I'm not mad about, how it ended up. But I mean, the fact that we were all kind of on that same page at the same time kind of shows that, and funnily enough, SSG is the only out of all those things that is still even around, I think. Which is
I don't know that TTL is really even active anymore.
That's what I mean.
The GGN as a whole kind of disintegrated.
Yeah, so many of it kind of fell apart, but the friendships that we forged are still here.
Yeah, for sure.
And the original allies, more or less, are all still around. I think.
Yeah, there are a few I can think of that you don't see anymore, but ultimately,
there's some turkey sandwiches that are being eaten and things like that. So,
I am wearing my tuxedo for this interview.
Yeah, well, obviously that was discussed as the appropriate attire for.
Yeah, I mean, we are out of orange juice, but
right.
I did what I could.
So SSG is now a decade old.
Yep.
And we've had how many lands now?
I think we've had officially maybe 4. 4 or 5.
Okay. Yeah, the most recent was in Vegas, which was awesome.
Was there Vegas, Atlanta, Chicago? Was Chicago one?
Yes.
Yep. St. Louis.
There you
go. St.
go.
Louis.
Okay, so that's them. And how long after SSG's creation did we get into the GGN? And by the way, folks, the GGN is the Good Game Network. It was a group of clans, I think 14 at its max.
There's a lot of acronyms. Stick with us.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be a test later.
Right. Yeah. Pop quiz at the end of class.
That's right. So how many years did it take us to get into the GGN?
It was within the first year, I think, or maybe just after the first year.
Was it that quick? Okay. Yeah, I honestly couldn't
it
remember.
It was that quick, but it felt long to me because we were basically trying from day one.
Right.
So it was kind of like the process of any one of these clans that were in the GGN, they all had some kind of they have some kind of induction process, right? Where you say you want to get in, then you got to meet everybody, play with everybody, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And it was the same thing, but our whole clan had to do that, right? So our whole clan had to play with not just one clan. We had to kind of play and meet and talk with all these other clans and all these other people. Yeah, I mean, we really had to kind of make a name for ourselves, which we hadn't really at that point because we were still pretty small because we were newer. I mean, obviously, some of the people knew us, especially that core, like Allies for the Win, the core that started it. We were kind of known around the GGN a little bit, but some of those newer people were not, and we hadn't really proven ourselves as a clan. And the GGN, wasn't into just willy-nilly accepting people, right? They didn't want to just let any clan in. Like, the process was long to begin with, and fairly arduous for really what it was. But I like that, right? I like that there was high standards, that there was only 12 to 14 clans total that were ever in it, when it was at its max.
Yeah, I completely agree. So Jay, how many, since this is your brainchild and you've played with everyone in the clan that is currently inducted, I assume. How many have you had an opportunity to meet? Would you say, give me a percentage? Do you think in person, how many people have you actually gotten to meet?
I would say, if you look at all of the members ever that we've had, I think we're somewhere about 97 total people that we've ever had. We're right under 100. And I bet I've met not quite half. I'll bet I'm in the 30 to 40 range, maybe.
That's not half bad.
I've got a follow-up question there as well. Out of those 30 or 40 that you've met, how many did you show your washer-dryer setup to?
It's reserved for very special members.
Right.
And so it's only been one.
Oh, well, interesting. Well, whoever that one is a lucky guy or gal.
Jesus. We got to dig up for the thumbnail that picture of you two playing the Kinect game.
It is pretty good. I think I do have that.
You'll have to.
That's when my hair was so long, my dad made me come home and get a haircut.
That's right. I mean, it was pretty intense.
Oh man. So
I think, unfortunately, I think a lot of these interviews are gonna be rife with innuendo and inside jokes. And people are just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah, that's kind of SSG, and we tend to go off the rails. That is kind of what we do, which is.
And to be fair, the educated listener probably could put two and two together of what's happening right now.
One would assume.
Yeah.
So stepping aside from SSG, Jay, tell us about you.
Yes.
What you do for a living. Who's Jay in a nutshell?
I am a paramedic, so I'm a paramedic full time. So I, no big deal. I just save lives every day when I'm at work.
I think the technical term for that is ambulance driver.
Yes,
please
ambulance driver. No, I live in the Midwest and I work on the ambulance, and so here where I work, it is completely separate from the fire department. So a lot of places around the country, they combine the two of those. So where I happen to work, they don't. So I work for a very large county, and we cover like 600 square miles or something like that. And so we have our own individual ambulance stations. And so I work at one, and it's just me and my partner. It's two paramedics on a truck, and so it's pretty nice because when I go into work, it's just me and him. And if I'm not on a call, we can pretty much do whatever we want. So I can run SSG from there. I can play video games. I can watch Netflix. I can take a nap. I can do whatever we need to do.
Until a call comes in, of course.
Yeah. So we just literally have to, we have a 1 minute to get from whatever we're doing to the ambulance and start driving to whatever call.
That's quick. So being a paramedic, I've always wondered this and I've never asked. Is that something you set out to do? Was that an end goal, or is that something that you thought, oh, that might be kind of cool, and just kind of went for it?
So I had started out wanting to be James Bond.
Oh, damn, Taken.
Yeah, it was Taken, and I'm not English. I think that
that is
hurt my chances too. But I did have the tuxedo already, so we established that.
Right.
So I wanted to be in law enforcement, and so I thought carrying a gun would be cool, and getting bad guys like James Bond would be cool. So that was something I wanted to do. My parents were not excited about that. They did not want me to be a cop, a detective, FBI, anything like that, right? Which, even back, this is 20 years ago even, so back in the late 90s, they still were not excited about that. And I think it's even more kinds of hazardous and job, and politically and physically too. So just very scary and dangerous nowadays. So my dad had kind of come up with a couple of different options, and one of them was firefighting. And I was like, I don't know. It didn't really appeal to me at the time. Mm-hmm. But he's like, well, let's just go up to the firehouse. So him and I went up to the local fire station, and it's this, really nice building. Walked in, and we kind of just, there's no appointment. We just kind of knocked on the door, and they answered, and there was a handful of firefighters there, and some were in the kitchen cooking, some were in the living room watching TV. There was one of somebody was in an office doing office work, and so we walked in, and they just kind of were amazingly nice, for just kind of showing up and just asking, like, hey, what do you guys do every day? And so they were like, this is it, right? Like, Steve's in the kitchen, he's cooking lunch, we're out here watching TV, and we just do whatever we want until we get a call, and then we go, fight fires, go to car wrecks, go to, whatever people call the ambulance or the fire truck for. And we get paid, this amount of money, and we have great benefits and a good pension and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow. I was like, because before then I don't know what I guess it's not really a profession I had thought of.
Right.
And so it was just eye-opening to, it was just very casual. Like it was like going into their house, because that is what it's like. And so they have a house and they have a kitchen and they have bunk rooms and all this kind of stuff. And they were just, you could tell like they were all friendly and family, and it just seemed like a fun environment and a fun place to be. And on top of that, right, they're fighting fires, saving lives, getting to do lots of cool things. And so I was like, man, they get paid really well. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to start doing that. So I initially kind of went down the avenue of firefighting. And so I had went to the local fire academy and finished that, and got hired for the department that put on the fire academy. And like I enjoyed that for a while. And so, but even then, this is back in 2000, 2001, you still had to, being a firefighter wasn't enough anymore. And so they wanted people to be an EMT. And then at that point, it was even transitioning to paramedic. And so here in the Midwest, like, people have to be, if you're a firefighter, you have to also be a paramedic, even if you're going to be on the fire truck 100% of the time.
Interesting.
Because you to have that extra skill set and knowledge is always good, right? Like, instead of the firemen being just firefighters and a paramedic shows up with two people on the truck, now, if a fire truck and an ambulance comes to somebody that's having a cardiac arrest, or they're having an allergic reaction or a stroke, anything like that, they show up, well, guess what? You don't have two paramedics, you have 5 or 6, right? So you have a whole bunch of people that can help that are all qualified, a whole bunch of different reasons. And so I had to go to, if I was going to stay on the firefighting thing, I was going to have to be a paramedic as well. So I started going to school and did all that. And part of that school is you have to do a bunch of rides on the ambulance. You have to do clinicals in the hospital and the emergency room and the OR and the ICU and do all these things. So you can kind of get some more knowledge, get some actual life skills and real life patients and things like that, and get hands-on and get a feel for what it's going to be like in the field. And so I rode at 2 different places on the ambulance, and one of them was the place I currently work. And so I found out that, like I said earlier, is they are just an ambulance company. They don't do fire. So I work for the county, and they let all the individual cities within that county handle the fire. And so when when I was doing my student time there, I got to meet all the people, and everybody there was super nice, super friendly. They had nice modern equipment. Everybody was fairly young, which that's not really typical in some of the fire industry, because you have people that have just been there for 20, 30, 40 years.
Right.
And which is fine, but I was young coming into it, right? And I didn't want to like go into a place like where I was coming from, where I went to fire school, where a lot of the guys are older, and it was just riding at this new place. Like, literally, I walked in and they're playing Xbox in the living room, like, while they're at work. And I was like, that certainly looks like a dream job to me, right? Like, they're getting paid to play Xbox, and then
sign me up.
They get a call and they go save lives, right? So I was like, man, that sounds awesome. So the more I talked to everybody that worked there, and I got to meet more people, it just seemed like such a dream job, because they made just as much money as any really good fire-paying job here, and it was a very casual environment. It's still a very casual environment, which I like. So, like I said, like, currently at the station I'm at, it's just me and my partner. That's it. There's no, because there's one ambulance, so there's no bosses, administrators, there's no secretaries, there's nothing. So it's literally just a house. Like, it looks like a house with a big garage, essentially. So we have our own individual bedrooms. We have a big living room, a kitchen, the garage, a basement, all that kind of stuff. So it's really nice. And I was like, well, sign me up.
Yeah.
And at this time, I kind of had to make a decision, because I had been down the road of firefighting, which I really liked. But, in the modern world, there's just not that many fires, because we have good fire codes. We have good fire inspectors and fire chiefs. And so with the exception of arson, houses don't just randomly catch fire typically. I mean, obviously it happens here. You'll see fires on the news,
Sure.
but it's super rare. So even if I was going to stay on the fire side, I would be a quote firefighter, but I'd really probably just be using my paramedic skills, or I'd be stuck on the ambulance somewhere anyway if I would have worked somewhere else. So I'd be a firefighter in name, fighting maybe a handful of fires a year, if that, because even if a fire breaks out somewhere and I'm not on duty, then I wouldn't even get to go anyway. So so it's like, should I quote be a firefighter and maybe just do a couple of fires a year and be a paramedic 95% of the time, or go to this other place where it's apparently really cool, get paid just as well, but just be a paramedic and know that I'm going to be a paramedic.
That's awesome.
And so I worked for 8 years to try and get a job there.
Wow. So
finally
you said it was 01, 02. So how old does that make you when you first walked into that firehouse?
20. So I was 20 in 2000.
Okay. Wow. That's cool.
So I've been doing this for like 19 years.
Wow. It's amazing how quickly time flies, man.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that the mileage would vary a little bit, but just out of curiosity, so when you're on shift, do you do like a 24-hour?
So the industry has kind of moved. So we used to do 24-hour shifts, and now we have switched to 48-hour shifts. So when I go in, I'm there for 48 straight hours. So I am working. My next shift will be Saturday and Sunday. So I go in Saturday morning at 7:30 a.m. and then I leave Monday morning at 7:30 a.m. and then I'm off for 4 days.
Oh, okay, well that's interesting.
Sounds awesome.
And so that sounds awesome. And so what I said when I said the mileage varies was actually this next question, but then I was curious how long you were actually at the house. Typically in a 48-hour shift, how many calls do you actually get?
So that does wildly depend on the area you're in. So like I said, we cover like 500 or 600 square miles, and we have 18 stations. And so there are some that are right in the heart of the city, and then there are some that are way out, in the country. So currently I'm at one of the ones that's right in the middle of the city, and we run usually about 8 to 12 calls a day. So so maybe on average you're going to get like 20 calls, maybe somewhere 16 to 20 calls in that 2-day period. But the station I am normally at, which I'll go back to on January 1st, we usually do about 6 calls a day, 5 or 6 calls a day.
Oh, wow.
And so if you figure, most calls will take an hour to 2 hours, roughly from when you leave the station, you get to their house, you talk to the people there or do any kind of procedure that needs to be done in the house or in the ambulance, drive them to the hospital, talk to the staff there, clean up the ambulance, and then get back to the station. It's usually about an hour to 2 hours depending on what hospital they want to go to or need to go to. So, if you look at 5 or 6 calls, that's like a 10 or 12 hour workday, which, that's not crazy, right?
No.
For most
not
people.
by a long shot.
I mean, maybe for Ghost Riders, most people
that's like 3 times the amount
have long days.
Oh man.
So, but you work 2 days and get 4 days off.
Yeah, that's
so
fun.
I drive into work once and then leave once, and then that's pretty much it for the week.
I'm in the wrong business. That's what
I hear that a lot.
I'm understanding. I bullet.
Yeah, I would say that like the hours sound great, but the first time I saw somebody bleeding, dude, I'd just puke everywhere and quit. So.
Oh, you're one of those. All right.
Oh yeah, for sure. So it doesn't appeal to me in that sense. The hours do, but the actual work, that's.
It's something. And that was kind of. It was a kind of like come to Jesus moment I had when I first started with that, because when I'm on the ambulance for the first couple of times, in most jobs, if you mess up something, right, like you mess up like the TPS cover sheet report, right, like you could just redo that. You can just reprint it, right? But like if I give somebody the wrong medication, or I don't give them a medication they need, or you know what I mean? Like any number of things that I potentially mess up on the ambulance.
Slightly more at stake.
Right. Could hurt that person, kill that person, could do a lot of things, right? And so it took a lot for me to kind of be okay with that, to be okay with, because on the ambulance, like I said, there's 2 people, but one person has to drive. So one person's in the back by themselves. So you're the only person back there with a patient, typically. Now, if it's a really, really bad call, a lot of times we'll have one of our battalion chiefs will show up, or we'll have usually we have the fire department come for like if it appears like it's a really, really sick person. And so we can have the fire department drive the ambulance for us, and then I can have my partner coming back with me. So, but typically it's just me, or it's just him in the back.
So how do you decide that, by the way? Do you guys flip a coin when you're leaving, or?
So some partners do it different. And so if you have the same partner, then usually you'll have that kind of decided. So my partner and I, we switch every time we transport somebody to the hospital. And so because a lot of times you'll go to a call and we'll go to like a minor car wreck, like in a parking lot, and so nobody's injured, so nobody wants to go to the hospital. So if I was the paramedic on that call, then I'm just still up. I just take the next one. So him and I don't switch unless we actually put somebody in the ambulance and take them to the hospital.
That's fair.
But some people, like, I'll work with other people and they hate that, because a lot of times we could have 3, 4, 5 calls in a row where we don't transport somebody, right? Like sometimes you might just have an elderly person that they slipped out of bed or fell out of their couch and they just need help up. They're just too weak. They can't make that transition. So we do a lot of these, what in the industry is called a lift assist. And so we just help somebody off the ground and get them back up or put them in bed. And so you could do 2 or 3 of those in a row, and you still have to write a report. And so you still have to write like, hey, we went there, we saw this, we did this, we checked vital signs, they weren't injured, so there's still some paperwork to it. And some people we work with like hate that, because so most people I would say don't do that. Most people, if you leave the station, they will switch after that. And so we just don't do it that way. I have some friends that we work with, and it would drive me nuts because I'm very OCD about a lot of things. And so I like everything has its place. Okay, everything's got to be nice and organized. And when they get a call, they don't decide who is the teching paramedic until they get some information about the call. So one of them does odds and even addresses, or they will do like north south if it's on the highway, or east west on the highway.
Interesting.
So they wait till they hear like the address, and they're like, oh, okay, it's your call. So if you go to 8 even addresses in a row, that person is going to work, do all those.
Interesting.
And then if Remy was your partner,
it
he
definitely
would just
varies.
be like, I'm driving. And then, there would be that.
Yeah.
Right on. So circling back to gaming, obviously over the past decade that SSG has existed, we started with us playing virtually every night. There were specialized nights that we would do, Monday Night Halo and things of that nature. But let's be honest, we were playing every single night we had an opportunity. So from that, obviously Halo.
It was always Halo at first, for sure.
Naturally. And God, SSG started during Halo 3, correct?
Yes, because Halo 3 came out in 2007.
Right. Okay, yeah, that's right. Okay. So from then to now, how has your gaming, not only your gaming time, but your gaming preferences, your gaming style kind of evolved or changed?
Probably the biggest thing that's changed is really the games I play. So, when we were playing Halo, whatever Halo game, Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo Reach, whatever we were playing, it was always multiplayer, right? Like, I mean, obviously, launch day, we would all run through and play campaign, and we'd occasionally play campaign or firefight, something like that. And then I think certainly the three of us have all flirted with the Call of Duties and stuff back in their heyday, like Modern Warfares and all that kind of stuff. And so, but that was straight up multiplayer, right? Like we were just playing
competitive, yeah.
Right, competitive PvP every night. That's what we were doing. And so the biggest thing that's changed for me is what really has changed in gaming. And so with the power of the consoles and the internet now, we have got this whole new, multiple genres of games that support co-op, right? Jump in, jump out co-op, drop in co-op, where where all you're doing is playing co-op, right? Where it's essentially just kind of like a campaign, but it's just ongoing, right? Which the Destinies, right? The Destinies, or even like a classic MMO like a Warcraft, right? Like those types of games where Warcraft maybe pioneered what where Destiny kind of came in and kind of really defined this genre thing. And I think like Remy, I think you and I really both enjoy that type of game. Like, and I still have the roots of like the PvP stuff for Halo, and I still like doing that. I still going back and playing Halo. But a game like Destiny that I do really enjoy, I never play the PvP stuff because I like the PvE stuff so much. I just like the, I don't need the competitiveness part of it, right? Like, I just like the gunplay, the story, chasing whatever loot or whatever you want to get, and so that's the part of it that I really like.
Okay.
Well, dare I say that even back in the Allies for the Win days when we were playing Halo 2, Halo 3, I mean, sure, the option was only for competitive natures, but the togetherness of it really was what drew all of us into it.
Oh yeah,
for an every night endeavor.
Oh yeah, playing a big team battle with 8 of your friends against randos.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I never. Well, I won't say I never, but I rarely, and I certain have. If this was my only way of playing, would have hopped on Halo every night and played by myself.
Right.
So the competitive aspect of the multiplayer wasn't what made it amazing. It was you guys. It was having a crew. I mean, at that time, there wasn't a sign up sheet where there wasn't multiple parties running on any given night.
Absolutely not.
Well, and back in the heyday of like the Halo 3s, there would be nights where, with these Allies for the Win crew that we would just rotate people, right? Because somebody's going to bed and somebody's just jumping on, or, we didn't 8 was not enough, right?
Right.
8 was not enough
Exactly.
for us.
Exactly.
No, it was great.
And
I miss those days.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And that's really what started SSG for me was, like I alluded to before, like we were already doing it, right? Like we were essentially already a clan, and because we were functioning as one, right? Like we had defined roles, defined people, right? Like we knew that Gambit was going to drive. Like there was no question. There wasn't like really a fight about it, right? Like we knew everybody's roles, and when somebody cycled in, we would just they would adapt to whatever that current team was. Like,
well, yeah, we legit had roles.
It was amazing.
We had four pre-designated roles: the wheelman, the honor guard, which you and your famous shotgun, of course, the raiders, and what was the archers? I believe, yeah, okay.
Archers. Yep.
So long distance and heavy weapons, and then
Power weapon whores. Yeah.
you're just jealous. What were you, John? You were a raider?
Well, I'm offended that you don't know the answer.
I don't remember, man. It's been a decade.
All the times I was in the back of your
Oh
car,
yeah, that's right. That's right. You were a wheelman. you were my gunner.
Unbelievable.
That's right. Rolling guns blazing.
That's right.
So now you play.
Like, well.
So Jay, now you play more the story-driven content.
Yes. Yeah. I still love single player games, and I have, my gaming has kind of ebbed and flowed, which I'm sure happens to all of us, but to where either I just don't feel like gaming for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and so I just really won't play anything to then where a new game comes out or a new system comes out and get back into it again. But as of right now, it's ridiculous because I still don't game as much as I used to, but I have an insane amount of systems. Like, it's ridiculous. I have the Xbox, the PlayStation, so Xbox One, PlayStation 4, the Switch. I've got a gaming PC that I basically just built for VR, and I've been loving that. And so, and then I just got the Google Stadia.
Ooh.
So I just have way too many ways to play, like, basically
all the same
like
games.
Destiny. I have way too many ways to play Destiny. Is what the problem is.
See, those are games that I can't stand because they're never ending. I need a finite end to my storyline, but that's just me. Well, I guess the listening audience doesn't know my distaste for Destiny, but we'll get there on my
your interview will be next.
We'll get there on my interview. But so what kind of hobbies do you do outside of gaming? You got 4 days off. What does a week in the life of Jay look like?
When I'm off duty, it's so nice to be in this banker's hour world. Like, I've never been in it, in my whole life. Like, before I got into medicine, I was doing kind of the servant job. So I waited tables, I bartended, I delivered pizzas. So I've never had the 9-to-5 job.
You're a lucky man.
And I feel really lucky because a couple of times I've had to be on when I got hired at this last job here on the ambulance, I got injured from a psych patient, and so I was on light duty, and so I had to work 9 to 5. And I remember the first 2 days, like, driving into work, And I was like, oh, what is all this traffic about? And I was like, oh, it's rush hour. Like, you guys do this every day. I'm like, this is awful.
Yep.
Like, like after 2 weeks, I was like, I don't care. Like, if I'm still injured, I'm going back to work full time. Like, this is terrible. And so my wife always makes fun of me because we don't have really a concept of, like, my wife stays home and she watches the kids. So she doesn't have like a traditional job either. And so it works out really good because for us, like, there's no, we don't have like a Monday or like looking forward to Friday because it doesn't matter, because for us, like, when I'm home, it might be, like I said, I'm working this Saturday, Sunday, so I'll be off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this next week. And so it's great, right? Like, so anytime I need to run errands or get anything done, I can just do it anytime during the day. But if I happen to go out at 4:30 to go run to the grocery store, run to the bank, I get like so frustrated because there's all this traffic. And she's like, you should know. And I'm like, I don't. I forget every time.
Normal people
every
do
time.
it.
I'm almost 40, and I forget. I'm like, this is just ridiculous. So it's nice not having having that freedom and not having such a restrictive schedule.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
And that really leads into I have a second job, and I started my own computer company. So I have a computer consulting company that I run, and I've been doing that almost actually just about the same time. So it's been about 18 years that I've had my computer company. And so, like I said, it's really just consulting on what people need. So I do a lot of home, 95% of it is home users. So people will call me and they just need help. Hey, my printer's not working. My, internet's not good. My 10-year-old desktop is really slow and I need to get a new computer. And so I try to specialize in kind of helping that person get the best device for what they need. Like, one of my strengths, I think, is kind of thinking outside the box. And I don't just, like, if somebody says I want to get a new computer, I don't just go over there and say, oh, they have a desktop, let's go get you a new desktop and be the end of it. So I want to decide, like, you have a desktop, you've only had desktops, is that still the right thing for you, right? Like, a lot of my clients tend to be older, and so if it's a 60, 70, even an 80-year-old and they want to get a new computer device, now we're in the smartphone and tablet and obviously laptops and stuff, and so they might have never considered that. And so I'll walk into their house and I'll be like, well, let's talk about getting you an iPad, right? Like, you don't need this big clunky desktop. You can check your email and surf the web from anywhere. You don't need to go all the way across your house to go to this office where the computer is,
right?
And then wait 20 minutes for it to boot up so you can go check your AOL email. Like,
man,
you can do that from anywhere. And so and so I really try to, like, just kind of broaden some perspectives for some people, and I think people really appreciate that. And I go into people's homes, and you don't really get that with. Who else are you going to call? I guess you could call, I don't know. I guess the Geek Squad makes house calls. Yeah, but they don't really do stuff like that. And so
fair point.
I only work on referrals. And so when I get a referral and I go into somebody's house, they already have this expectation, right? So obviously I've gotten a good review from whoever referred me, and then and they kind of have an expectation of what to expect, right? So I'll go in and I just kind of look at their whole computing life, right? Like, hey, let's get you a better router. Let's get you a wireless mouse instead of one with this 2-foot cord that you don't have any room to maneuver your mouse, right? But people get kind of tunnel vision or complacent with some of these things, and with computers and kind of our health, there's a lot of similarities there, and people just don't know. They don't know enough, and they don't want to screw it up, right? So even if, like, their mouse cord gets wrapped around something and all they have to do is simply unplug it, unwind it, and then plug it back in, like, people think that'll break their computer, right? Or they don't know where it plugs in, or they just get nervous and they don't want to touch it, they don't want to mess it up because they don't want to do something wrong. And so I kind of come in and I'll, like, while I'm talking to somebody, I just clean stuff up, right? Like, I organize their space, or I reroute the mouse, the keyboard cables, like, make Wi-Fi better, like, talk about different things. And some people just it just takes a second set of eyes to go over that kind of stuff. And there is big parallels to medicine too, because on my job on the ambulance, we run calls and people, they don't know. Like they might have a broken arm, and they call the ambulance because they fell again, or they're still having pain, or they want to go back to the hospital or go see the doctor. And I'm like, and I'll come in and I'll say, hey, what if let's adjust your sling because your sling's not on right? And so fix their sling so it's sitting right, and then they're not in as much pain, and they don't need to go to the hospital. Right? They didn't necessarily need to go to the hospital. They just needed advice or help. Like they needed, medical advice. And so I'll get there and kind of walk through somebody about, if they're a new diabetic, talk to them about what that means, right? Like, what's at risk, what you need to check, how you need to check, how often, go over just a bunch of things like that. And like I said, with computers or our health and human body, like those are two things that most people don't know very much about. And so it's really good job security because for me, there'll always be people that need computer help and people that always need the ambulance.
Yes, absolutely. That's interesting. So you're like the holistic computer guy.
Yeah.
Right on. And you live in the Midwest. Have you always lived in that area? I have, unfortunately.
I mean, I like the pace and the city and the people and everything. I don't have any problems with that. But, I made my first trip out to California 3 years ago. So it only been all my adult life. I'd never been anywhere on the West Coast really. I take that. I guess I've been to Vegas before, but never had
the coast.
Never had been to California, and it always seemed like someplace I wanted to be. Like I love the weather. I like the people. Right. Just that whole like environment of it. And yeah, once we went out there, went to San Diego, and I was like, man, this is amazing. Yeah. And so I would love.
But it's also a shit show.
I would love to move. Yeah.
Just a fair point. I lived down there for a while. It's crazy. I love San Diego, but it's absolutely insane.
Well, and I wouldn't have to move there specifically, right. But yeah, I would. I think my personality and I think I would fare very, very well in like California somewhere or something like that. I think I'm not the kind of person that's going to be like, oh, I miss snow. Like no, I'm fine with it being like 72 degrees like every day of the year. Like I'm 100% fine with that.
Yeah. I think you'd do well out here. I could see it.
So yeah, but my family's been, all my family's been here, and my wife, she's a big homebody and doesn't want to leave her friends and family, her parents and stuff like that. Sure. So she wouldn't want to move. I can't even get her to move like 20 miles from here. So I definitely would not be able to get her to move to the coast for sure. Right
on. Well, I think we're coming to the end here. Are there any last thoughts or anything you want to leave the audience with?
Not on me specifically. I mean, I think they've got more than enough Jayman information now that they can.
There's never enough.
They can sleep easy at night, but look for more of these podcasts coming up. We want to do these interviews. These ones that I've done before. Always end up talking about the SSG origin story, right? Because that's just it's always going to be a part of me. Like there's not a way around that, absolutely. Right? From my perspective or the interviewer perspective, like it's just got to come up. So, but we want to keep doing these interviews and these podcasts with all of our all the SSG Knights, right? All the members. We want to get a record, right? We want to have a way for people to share their story, right? How they became gamers and how they found SSG and all that kind of stuff. So I personally, I'm really looking forward to it because there's some of them that I know, but I probably forgot, right? Like I want to hear the tales and stories and,
Yeah, there are people, I was looking at the roster and the people upcoming, and there are some people that I haven't spoken to in years, and I very much look forward to speaking with them. So this is going to be a fun project, and I hope you, the listener, enjoy. Y'all have a great night.
All right. See you guys.